What's up everyone, Ryan DeBomb here. Today, I will be taking a look at the 2020 science fiction comedy movie, and the Kevin Gets Grounded series finale from yours truly, titled Kevin Gets Grounded, the finale. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. Before I begin though, I would like to give a shout out to Not Dumber in this video. Thank you Not Dumber for the great support for the channel. Now, let's begin the video. The movie starts with a 7-year-old boy named Kevin, sitting in his room, bored, for having his stuff taken away for being the little shit that he is. Anyway, he tries to come up with something fun to occupy his time, but nothing comes to mind. He decides he'll go for a walk, since it's better than sitting around doing nothing. During his walk, he complains about how nothing cool and exciting happens in the world and wishes for something like that to happen. His wish comes true, as he hears a small explosion from a distance, which actually came from the basement of a scientist, Rod Isaacs. Apparently some kind of material exploded from a laser gun he's been working on, and he leaves temporarily to change into some clean clothes. Curious about the explosion, Kevin decides to break into the scientist's basement to see what kind of stuff he has. Kevin is surprised to see the amount of cool stuff the scientist has, like a lightsaber and some laser guns. What really draws his attention is the time machine. He decides to take it for a spin, to see if it can really travel through time. Ignoring the fact the time machine is under maintenance and is property of Plotagon Industries, Kevin decides to use the machine anyway. Kevin uses the machine to go back to 66 million years ago when dinosaurs were prevalent, and Kevin is shocked beyond belief the time machine actually worked. His excitement is short-lived however, as a dinosaur spots Kevin and goes after him, and hurries back to his time. Making it back safely without a scratch, the idea of time travel excited Kevin. He can't help but think about the many possibilities time travel has, and what it is capable of. Kevin comes up with a sadistic idea, which is to go back to when the United States was first established, and become the president. Uh-oh, not good. As he plans to use the machine again, Rod comes back in the nick of time and sees Kevin in the machine. Rod warns him it's very dangerous to time travel and advises him to stay away from the machine. Kevin, being a defiant piece of crap that he is, refuses and goes to the year 1776, disregarding the consequences. Rod is worried Kevin's about to do something bad. Kevin arrives in 1776 Philadelphia, and asks a local man at the docks where Thomas Jefferson is. The man is astounded a random little kid came from nowhere in a machine, and Kevin states he's from the future and the United States is bigger, better, and kicks so much ass, and that he's got a message for Jefferson and needs to give it to him. The man directs Kevin to the Independence Hall, where the signing of the Declaration of Independence is currently taking place. Thomas Jefferson is seen going over the Declaration to 55 other delegates, including John Hancock. Kevin barges into the room and introduces everyone to him. Thomas asks Kevin what he is doing there, and states he's from the future and lets everyone know the future is awesome and the country kicks so much ass. Thomas demands Kevin to prove everything that he's saying about the future and America are true. Kevin informs him he came in through a time machine, so Thomas and John Hancock, not knowing what a time machine is, decide to follow him to the docks where the machine is present. As soon as they arrive at the docks, Thomas could not believe his eyes, and wonders how it works. After Kevin explains how the machine works, Thomas is intrigued and wants to visit his time. Kevin accepts, and Thomas tells John Hancock to stay behind, to make sure he makes it back okay. John accepts, and Kevin and Thomas travel to 2020, and Thomas is flabbergasted with how advanced and developed America has become. After returning back, Thomas tells John about how amazing the future is, and John can't believe it. Thomas tells Kevin about the doubts he had with America and its future, but now he's relieved the country has a bright future ahead. Kevin tells him the real reason he came, and besides telling Thomas how great the country really is, he claims it's not good enough. Kevin claims that rules get in the way of people expressing their freedoms and people should do whatever they want when they feel like it. Thomas points out rules are in place in society for a reason, but Kevin argues back claiming rules also make people angry and protest and certain rules should not exist, and believes he should be the one to become the President of the United States. Thomas objects the idea of course, but Kevin counters back by stating he has a time machine on his hands, which means anything can be possible and they can build the greatest country the world will ever know, promising safety and happiness for everyone. Thomas and John are convinced, and agree to help Kevin with his plan. Wow, I can't believe they actually fall for it. Meanwhile, Kevin's parents, David, and Melissa, are in the living room watching TV, when all of a sudden they hear a strange beaming noise. The noise is heard all over town, and as that happens, everything changes around them, including their living room, which becomes a mess all of a sudden. Shocked, and very concerned for Kevin's well-being, they decide to go look for him around the house. Did Kevin not tell them where he went or something? Who knows. Moving on. They can't find him in the house, so they decide to leave to go look for him, and as they go on their search, they notice how different the houses look all throughout the neighborhood. David asks a police officer nearby for his missing son, and describes Kevin wearing a purple shirt with a skull on it and the orange hat, and the officer mocks him saying he's going to need a lot of luck looking for his son, because every single person in the city wears the exact same clothing. At the same time, the officer ridicules him for not being in dress code, and he needs to wear the same clothing just like the president. The officer luckily just happens to have some spare clothes for them to wear. David and Melissa, confused about what the officer means by the president's clothing, cooperate. In downtown, David and Melissa can't help but wonder what happened to their town, and they point out how strange everyone around them dresses and acts, and why they can't find Kevin. David notices a giant TV screen that is on the side of a building, and he and Melissa watch a news broadcast. Mr. Robot announces that the president of the world, Kevin, has declared the following people as fugitives and to be arrested and sentenced to life in prison. The robot lists the names, which includes Kevin's teachers, and of course, Kevin's parents. As soon as the broadcast ends, David and Melissa are in disbelief that Kevin is now the president of the world and he declared them as fugitives, and the city they live in is no longer Plotagon City, but now called Kevin City. Every citizen starts turning on them, including an officer nearby, and starts chasing them. They make a run for it. While hiding in the alley, David and Melissa are unsure what to do from this point on, until another officer shows up, and orders them to come with him immediately. The officer takes them to an underground base, and as soon as they are in the control room, the officer takes off his helmet, and reveals himself to be Kevin's first-grade teacher, Angus Fucker. It turns out he was going undercover as a cop, and he had to make it look good for the cameras, because they are everywhere, and they watch closely. Kevin's second-grade teacher, Deborah Bitchfield, and Kevin's principal, Richard Dickwad, share what happened to them when the world changed out of nowhere, and they share their houses look like the site of a bombing. David and Melissa are glad Kevin's teachers are okay and safe in the base. David asks Mr. Fucker what this place is, and reveals it was an old military base, and is now owned by a secret organization that is called the Abomination Resistance. The supreme leader, Ryan, comes up and explains the goal of the resistance, which is to stop all abominations from existing, or coming into existence, so no future generations will have knowledge about who or what they are, and so they don't create or continue abominations from existing. Kyle, the second-in-command and brother of Ryan, explains how they modified the old military base. David and Melissa wants to know how this world could even be possible. Ryan tells them Rod Isaacs knows the answer, and speaking of which, Rod comes in and wants to talk to the both of them in private in another room. In the other room, Rod proceeds to explain how he specializes in teleportation and weapon developing technology for a research facility that is part of Plotagon Industries. He recaps about when he was working in his basement, his laser gun malfunctioned, so he had to clean up, and when he came back, he saw Kevin and used his time machine. Rod theorizes Kevin went to the year 1776, became the president by manipulating the founding fathers into following his plan, and painted himself as some kind of wise being, and people even built churches after him as they believe he is a 300-year-old inside the body of a young child. He backs up his reasoning by stating the knowledge of American history is replaced with Kevin and his history, and cities and countries around the world have been renamed and changed as well. He states Washington, D.C. is not what it used to be. Now the former Capitol House is the biggest prison the world has ever seen. David and Melissa can't believe what they are hearing, but Rod's not finished there. Kevin's actions of traveling through time could have dire consequences to the space-time continuum, even to the point where the world would no longer exist due to the past, present, and future colliding, and that's why Kevin needs to be stopped right away. Kevin's parents cannot believe they are hearing, I mean, who could blame them? I would be shocked too. At the same time, James Bodie, his son Arthur, and everyone else that is recognizable in the Kevin series comes in the room to see Kevin's parents, and they're all happy to see they are doing okay. James announces to everyone that everything that happened in the world today is what he saw in a vision. David asks James what he means by that, and James goes on to explain that when he went on his spiritual journey a few months back, in which Kevin was involved, at the mountain peak, he received a vision all of the sudden of the world 30 years in the future, where Kevin is the president, and ordered everyone to go after James. James knew as soon as that vision was over, he felt obligated to purify his soul, as it's corrupted, so the events would not happen, but by the time he tried to help Kevin out, it was too late, and now he feels he's responsible for what had transpired. David assures him it's not his fault, he did the best he can to help his son out, and believes the resistance might have a plan to stop all of this. Ryan goes on his intercom, and wants everyone in the base to report to the control room for an important meeting. When everyone gathers around, Ryan tells everyone the gravity of the situation. Not everyone believes this at first, but Ryan warns everyone the situation they're in right now is very crucial to the existence of the entire universe, and they must act now before the world is no more. Everyone in the room starts to panic, but Ryan calms them down by assuring everyone that they thankfully have a plan to reverse everything that happened according to Rod Isaac's research. The plan is to go to the Capitol building, which is what the town hall of the city used to be, and remove Kevin from office, quite literally. They plan to do this by waiting until it gets dark out, and Mr. Fucker will help get David and James get to the Capitol via police van, and they will go in dressed up as police officers, and they will go up to the top floor where Kevin's office is located, and talk him into undoing everything that happened. Since the security of the city is very tight, Ryan and his brother Kyle plan to create a distraction by blowing up a military base, which is literally named the Big Ass Army Base, which will draw the attention of all authorities. As soon as the meeting is over, Ryan orders everyone to get the plan going. Nighttime has arrived, and before going though, David and James give a farewell to Melissa and Arthur respectively, in case they might not make it, and Ryan wishes good luck to Mr. Fucker on his mission with David and James. Meanwhile in the Capitol building, Kevin is seen coming back to his office from his travels, with his new set of clothes on, and introduces to Thomas, who is now the vice president and wears Kevin's clothing, and John Hancock, the secretary of the president with Kevin's clothes as well, his two new bodyguards, a caveman who doesn't speak any languages, and KD 2021, a combat robot from the year 3020. Kevin seems to like his leadership, and Thomas compliments Kevin for it. Moments later, everyone in the office hears a loud explosion. Kevin is surprised about this, and he goes to the balcony to see what's going on. At the balcony, Kevin is shocked to see what happened to the military base, and can't believe how this is possible. A broadcast airs all throughout the city, and Mr. Robot warns everyone what happened to the military base could be a terrorist attack by the resistance, and that everyone needs to stay indoors. Mr. Fucker sees the distraction has worked, because every cop and soldier are responding to the attack. Ryan, Kyle, and the rest of the resistance plan to leave the destroyed base as they've caused enough damage, but before they do, a group of soldiers come up to them and attempt to take them down, but the resistance succeeds, and starts running out of the destroyed base. Our heroes arrive at the Capitol building, and David and James hurry inside while Mr. Fucker leaves to help get the resistance out of the base. Once inside, David and James get their knockout guns ready, and fight against the police while on their way to the top. They nearly get shot, but they finally make it up to Kevin's office, and there, David orders his son to stand down. Kevin turns around, and he tells David, with a smug face, about his time machine. David angrily exclaims how upset he is with Kevin and what he's done to the world. Kevin argues it's not a big deal, and that he made the world a lot better, but David is not convinced and tries to have Kevin see that what he does is actually ruining time and space itself. And James tells him the spiritual aspect by stating the corruption is endangering the fate of the world, even endangering Kevin's already dark soul, but Kevin doesn't want to hear any of it and he could care less. James pleads to Kevin that he must step down from his leadership so the universe can fix itself, but Thomas Jefferson and John Hancock interrupts and starts threatening them for attempting to end Kevin's leadership. Kevin cuts off everyone from talking, and orders Thomas, John, KD 2021, and the caveman to take our two heroes down, and put them to jail for life. While Kevin runs out of the office to escape through his time machine, all six of them start to duke it out, with David going against Thomas and KD 2021, and James against John and the caveman. David and James at first struggle, but they eventually put up a good fight and tranquilize one person at a time. Meanwhile, the resistance are struggling to escape the burning military base, with resistance members being taken down one by one. David takes down Thomas, which leaves KD 2021. She makes a statement about how no matter what, she will not allow Kevin's leadership to be threatened and he will rule for all eternity. Thankfully James comes in and successfully shuts her down with a knockout gun. David thanks James for the help, but then realizes they need to hurry so they can stop Kevin once and for all. Kevin gets into his machine in another room, and plans to go back and prevent his dad and James from trying to stop him, but David and James arrive at the nick of time and order him to stop what he's doing and to stand down, but Kevin refuses and states he will rule forever. David orders him to stop, and that he is now grounded. Kevin, mad with power, doesn't feel the effects of punishment, because he's more powerful than anybody in the world and grounding him will do nothing. David proves Kevin wrong, by stating there is someone more powerful than him. David pushes Kevin out of the machine, and uses it to go back to 1776 to prevent the past Kevin from altering history, but as that happens, Kevin jumps into the machine, while James stays behind and shot. Arriving in 1776, Kevin angrily exclaims he will not be overpowered, but David is not having it. The past version of Kevin is shocked to see his dad and his future self here in the past and wonders what is going on. David tells past Kevin he must not do what he's about to do, it will ruin the world and the existence of life itself. Kevin tells past Kevin dad is lying, as he wants to take freedoms away from people. David pleads with past Kevin to do the right thing, to take the time machine back to Rod, and go back home. He pleads more that this is not like Back to the Future. Past Kevin agrees to listen to David, thinking becoming the president is not worth risking the existence of life, and takes the machine back. David tells Kevin his reign will end very soon, but Kevin is overconfident of himself thinking he's not going to do it, he will be defiant like he usually is. Ryan is seen cornered by a soldier, and when things seem hopeless, the soldier out of the blue disappears from thin air. Ryan is surprised to see this happen, and thinks maybe the plan had indeed worked, and Kevin was truly removed from office. One by one, everyone starts to disappear, as the timeline of Kevin's action ceases to exist. As this happens, James senses what's going on, and feels David succeeded before he disappears as well. David and Melissa return to their living room, now clean again, and believe they went back to before Kevin ruled the world. To make sure of that, David checks if Kevin's in his room, and he's right, and both David and Melissa are proud and happy to see their son did the right thing. The doorbell rings, and they see Ryan, James, and everyone else congratulating David for helping to save the world. Even Rod Isaacs is proud Kevin returned his time machine as well, but just because he did the right thing, it doesn't mean it will go unpunished, and believes he should receive a fair punishment for his actions. Even though David does forgive Kevin for his genuine apology, he grounds him for 999,999,999 millenniums, and has all his privileges taken away from him. Kevin understands, and goes up to his room. In his room, Kevin thinks about the things he had done, and wonders if he had gone too far. Now Kevin believes he should rethink his life, and considers putting his troublemaking behavior to an end. Thank you all for watching. Do you like this recap video? Let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome content. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Ryan DeBomb out.